Hello, everyone. We're just waiting a few minutes until everyone is arriving from the waiting room to the actual webinar. Hello, everyone. My name is Sophia Hansen. I'm the junior analyst from EIT Campus, and I'd like to welcome everyone here today. First of all, thank you, Tamas, for accepting our invitation and being our presenter and speaker for today's event on the European healthcare ecosystem. This webinar is part of a 13 webinar series, which is organized within the framework of our EIT Global Export Readiness Programme. This program is supported by the International Visegrad Fund. We are very thankful for your support with this initiative, and is organized in collaboration with 3 of our partners from the EIT region, DEX Innovation Centre, Civitta, and Startup Hub Poland. So briefly about Startup Campus, we are one of the largest accelerators here in Hungary, and we have offices in Berlin and London. I am part of the London team, and we help companies mostly with their foreign acceleration, with expanding into foreign markets, and in general just supporting their business development journey. The program which we are here for today has selected 8 healthcare startups that are from the region, 2 from each country that are wishing to enter new European markets. They receive personal consultations week by week, can participate in these 13 webinars on the broader healthcare ecosystem, on learning certain skill sets that are necessary for expansion, and can participate in a demo day at the end of the program where they will pitch in front of international investors. So today we will hear from Tamas, who is a business professional and a market communications expert. He is currently the business creation project manager for the RIS region at EIT Health, which is one of the largest networks of health innovators that is backed by the European Union. So just before I give over the word to Tamas, you can ask questions in the chat or via the Q&A function. And this webinar is recorded, and it's going to be shared on Startup Campus's Facebook channel and on our YouTube channels as well. So Tamas, thank you again for joining and accepting our invitation. And I'd like to give the word to you.
Hi, everyone. It's an honor to be here, and thank you for inviting me. So let me share my screen with you. And yes, how has been said as before. So if you have any question, please let me know, write in the chat. And of course, at the end of my presentation, you will have time to raise your questions, and I'm more than happy to answer for it. So as Sophia mentioned at the beginning, I'm representing EIT Health. I'm Risk Business Creation Manager within EIT Health, meaning that I'm taking care of the accelerator programs within Central, Eastern, and Southern Europe. EIT Health, I just brought some of the key programs of our portfolio because at the first part of my presentation, I would like to talk about the innovation performance of Europe, especially, of course, focusing Central, Eastern, and Southern Europe, but altogether you will see how we are moving compared to the other parts of the world, a little bit talking about the healthcare trends of 2021, and of course, most probably these trends will lead us to 2022 as well, and some of the financial sources which can be essential and also important for each and every startups. And at the second part of my presentation, I will talk about some of our programs, but you need to know that this is just a really short or let's say a slice of it, because we have 16 different, just this year, we had 16 different accelerator programs that tailor-made for different type of maturity levels. So EIT Health, as a European institute and part of the European Union, can offer opportunities from the ideation phase to the scale up and scale out phase. So, and we will see that we have some special programs besides the different, let's say, standard ones to each and every maturity level we can imagine. So, first, the European innovation. So, in general, so as you know, as you probably know, EU is definitely has a strong intention to catch up with the leaders of innovation globally. Just EIT or EIT Health, our mother company is EIT, but of course we are the health branch of it, is one part of the intention. So definitely EIT and the branches have been established in order to accelerate the innovation performance and of course increase the number of products and services which are hitting the global markets coming from the EU. So again, we have, so let's go this way, because EU is all of us, has a strong intention to catch up with the rest of the world. As you can see, for 2018, actually, we can beat down the US and we are still above the US innovation performance, even though sometimes we feel like that, of course, the US is much more advanced in some cases or some aspects, like the investment landscape. Of course, because of the homogeneous cultural and financial landscape, US has many advantages. And of course, we feel like that sometimes, you know, from the technology point of view, they are a little bit more advanced, but overall innovation performance now is stronger in case of the EU than the US. But as you can also see that still we have some other players on the market which are ahead of us, like Japan, Australia, Canada, or South Korea. And we didn't mention here because of the size, but if we are talking about, for instance, the innovation investment GDP per capita, of course, we need to talk about Israel as well, because Israel has the highest innovation spending per capita, which is really, really important to mention here, that they have many, many things we can learn from. Partially, that was the reason that also EIT opened an office in Israel, in Tel Aviv, for having a strong relation with one of the most major advanced ecosystem in the world. So as you can see, so we are still in the middle. We have a long way ahead, but the good news is that EU is on the right track. So definitely there are many, many initiatives coming from the previous years, which are pointing out that EU has a really strong, not just intention, fortunately, but really strong actions towards this goal. As you can see, that from the innovation performance, since 2014, we have a 12.5% increase on our innovation performance. And as you can see, some of the countries improved more than the others. So the leaders of these kind of improvement was Cyprus, Estonia, Greece, Italy, and Lithuania. So I believe that with many of these countries, you are familiar how advanced they are from innovation point of view, like Estonia, which is one of the most digital countries in the EU. And as you can see, a little bit, we increased the spend on innovation, but still we have a low number or low level of investment for innovation compared, for instance, the US or China. And it's important that while, for instance, the US, Canada, or Israel, or all other countries actually except us is homogeneous from cultural, from structural, from financial point of view, the EU is not. So that's something we are all facing day by day. So even though we have the EU, of course, we should not forget about the other parts of Europe, which are also can be a goldmine for innovation further on, and they are already creating really nice innovation outputs. But if you're just focusing on the EU, and we have the European Union as an umbrella institute, let's assume this, then we are still facing with the reality that country by country is a little bit different from the regulation point of view. Whenever we are talking about healthcare innovation, of course, we should not forget about the reimbursement strategy and policy of each and every country. So whenever you are out of your home country and you would like to become a part of the public healthcare system, meaning that you would like to ask money from the local governments in order to provide your service to as a patients. Now that's a really long way ahead. It's slow. It's sometimes really complicated from legislation and from cultural point of view. It's so different country by country, meaning that each and every innovation from time to market perspective has a longer way ahead than, for instance, the US. So I mentioned to you that we were able to reach a higher innovation performance in the US from 2018, but still, for instance, the time to market is around the triple time than the US. It's something we should all work on. And of course, we have the original nature of the EU, so all of the countries are heterogeneous, no common legislation, but there are many things we can do. So, and the good news is that EU already realized this and started to make these kind of things happen. And besides that, of course, country by country is different. We have two big blocks in the EU, which is the Eastern and Western Europe. There is definitely a huge gap between the two blocks, even though, so yeah, we can point out many differences, like the investment landscape, like the financial landscape, also the education part. But the good news is that Eastern Central Europe, from the innovation potential point of view, is at least equal to the Western European part. So the good news is that we have a supply from good brains and from good innovation potentials. But of course, we need to improve that region in order to have a full body to the Western European bloc. So right now, this is, again, I mentioned to you that I'm coming from a program so-called RIS. This is a regional innovation scheme. And actually, EIT established this program by this purpose. So actually, within RIS program, which is not just an EIT Health program. So it's you can find this program sometimes in a different name, but under different EIT Health, EIT branches like EIT Manufacturing, EIT Food, Climate Change, InnoEnergy, etc. But the overall aim in each and every program is to integrate the Eastern European or Eastern Central European innovation landscape to the Western European ecosystem. So that's pretty much what we are doing. And as you can see, as a kind of final promising act, that we have a new rising star in CE, so the Central Eastern European market. This is Poland. So if you checked out or if you followed the way of Poland, you can see that how much investment is going to the Polish ecosystem. There are many external foreign and sometimes out of Europe investment sources, and we are not talking about one or two investors who are heading to the Polish market, but we are talking about solid big investment corporations. Actually, hundreds of them are proceeding to the Polish market and searching for the nice innovation performances. So that's something which is definitely make Poland a boom. But other than that, of course, Poland has a really nice innovation potential, a really good education. So actually, this is how the good brains are meeting with the money. And of course, they can do a lot of magical things in the future as well. So our rising star is Poland, definitely. But as you can see in my next slide, actually, that how from 2014 to 2020, the innovation performance grown in the Central Eastern European bloc as well, of course, as well as with the Western European one. We can find some countries which are a little bit under than that. I mean, made a decrease in the recent years, but we can say altogether that most of the countries did an increase in the past few years. As you can see, we have different categories like emerging innovators, moderate innovators, strong innovators, and innovation leaders. I don't think I'm really making a surprise for you. So on the innovation leaders and strong innovators, you can find the Western European countries. And on the moderate and emerging innovators, you can find the Central, Eastern, and sometimes the Southern European countries. Of course, it's country by country is a little bit different. But of course, the overall good news is that all of the countries are increasing. Again, just a few exceptions you can find here. But the majority of them is increasing its innovation performance and increased in the past 6 years. Maybe it's even more or even better news that they are continuously increasing it. And whenever we are talking about COVID-19 and the whole pandemic we are in still, of course, it's really hard to tell something good. It's, you know, hit every part of our life. We had really hard times, and I believe we are still having really hard times, and we will have really hard times. I'm not that optimistic, you can find out from my words. But the good news is, again, really hard to tell something good, but from the innovation point of view, we can say it was a huge trigger, especially in the healthcare, because the public opinion turned to the healthcare, because healthcare, you heard many times this kind of, let's go this way slogan, that healthcare is something that if everything is going fine, people are, you know, not making a huge buzz around it. Because if you're going to a doctor, you are getting the service, you have been cured, it's pretty straightforward. You're expecting that. But if something is going bad, of course, you will be angry because you are expecting a normal service and you have been cured after a service. So healthcare is not something which is usually, you know, in the favor of the people's eyes. But now, because of COVID-19, not just investors, not just the industry itself, but public opinion turned to healthcare and started to be interested in. And because of this, healthcare innovation became, not just because of this, of course, but because of the need actually for having new type of treatments, new type of solutions, because of the lack of resources, the limitations in each and every part of our life. It triggered the life of innovation, of healthcare innovations. And by the way, I can tell you that of course, everybody can have a different experience, but you know, by talking with hundreds of startups on a monthly basis, we have the experience that at the beginning of 2020, there was some kind of conservative turn on the investor side. So many of the ongoing investment has been frozen because everybody was afraid that what will happen. But except that period, actually investors became more progressive. So they started to boil more money into to the industry. They started to finance more and more projects. Other than that, and I will talk about later on, the good news is that in the recent years, there are so many public fundings you can go for. So I truly consider the previous years, including the COVID-19 period, again, hard to tell something good. It's a golden era for healthcare innovation, because definitely if you want to have money, you can have. Even though you are an early stage company, you are not that attractive in the eyes of the investors. You can go for public, local, or the EU money. So for sure, and I would give you some examples, what are the institutes who are providing different type of fundings, so you can have it. I don't, of course, every startup has its own opinion. Everybody has his own experience, but I can tell you that majority of the startups won't have too much problem with the money. But the other thing is how you are utilizing the money. Now that's the point where we feel still feels to be improved, because you can receive 50,000, 100,000 of euros, even if you're an early stage company. You know, just in EIT Health, we are giving 50,000 euros in many of our programs, which is a so we are not asking anything back, equity or shares. So we are giving 50,000 euros as a max for one team in a year, but you can have it. But the other thing is how you are using that money. And if you are not, because of course, most of you, so healthcare innovators, are coming from the healthcare field, so you are excellent what you're doing, but you are not business guys, and this is totally okay. But if you are not educated on the business part, how you should utilize the money in a wise way, then 50,000 euro can be spent really easily and quickly. And that's the problem what we are facing in most of the occasions. But of course, let's focus on first how you can get money or where you can get money. And I will later on tell you that just from our portfolio, what type of programs we can offer to you to learn how to use the money in a proper way. But before that, let me just really bit quickly give you an overview. What are the biggest healthcare trends in Europe at the moment? So this is a 2021 overview, and you can find the percentages per revenue, overall revenue of healthcare companies. So as you can see, whole Europe, like 12% of telemedicine. Of course, artificial intelligence is still booming. It has the highest number. And the thing how I would like to link to my previous saying with this, that now you can have money. On the other side, so the investor's side, and also from your side, you need to be cautious that how you're utilizing the money. Investors and public sources like us should be aware how we are using, public money and private money in the best possible way, because the too much optimism can be also harmful. Just think about the story of Theranos. I believe that all of you heard about it. It's a US company. It was a huge scam. It was a master scam, I can tell you. Now they are under investigation, but for years that was a huge optimism, and it's really dramatic how one company can change the mindset globally, the investors, because whenever Theranos stepped into the market and they were so promising, then many investors, not just in the US, but globally, started to boil money into healthcare innovation, because they saw that example, they saw how, magical things can happen. But whenever it has been revealed that Theranos was a scam, it was the counterproductive, let's say, effect on investment mindset. So actually, whenever we are talking about now the post-COVID era, even though we are in the COVID era, but let's assume that we are out from COVID in the next year, hopefully, then we are still having this kind of optimism from the investor side. So they are more giving money to healthcare innovation than ever. But if they are, if they are having the negative experiences by their investments, then we can get into the state where we were after the Theranos story. So that's really important here, because most of the investors, of course, are not coming from, so they are not professional investors. They don't know in details what healthcare projects are covering. They don't, most of the occasions, they don't understand the technical content of it. Therefore, it's important to have institutes who can translate for them and make a kind of a risk mitigation, because otherwise the whole industry will suffer from that. I really hope that this kind of huge increase on the investment and the available amount of money in the market will be utilized in a proper way, and we can continue the golden era after 1 or 2 years from now, because other than that, it's just a short period. Some of the startups, some of the innovators will win, but the whole industry actually will suffer in the longer term. So I truly believe and truly hope, actually, not believe, because at the moment I have mixed feelings, but I truly hope that that we can get over it, and actually we can use this opportunity in a wise way. So getting back to the healthcare trends, because I just started to say that there is a linkage between the two thoughts. And I just mentioned to you as an example, artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, we all know, it's a valuable balloon. Why I say this, or why I tell you, it's a balloon or valuable, how it's coming together. Because many of the artificial intelligence projects are really, really covering deep tech content. But I believe all of us met with examples whenever artificial intelligence was actually a simple algorithm and nothing more. There was no real machine learning behind it. There was no real deep tech content in. And of course, it does not mean that the solution, which is based on that technology, should be wrong. So I'm not telling you, but of course, it's important not to make a kind of scam towards your future investors and future users, because other than that, it's just a really short-term product, a short-term solution. But we feel like that artificial intelligence at the moment is a kind of 50-50. Some of the projects are awesome, and it's really, really leading us to the future. But some of them are somehow or somewhat a little bit covering, hidden secrets by saying it's artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence, even though it's a huge field of healthcare right now, so many of the new technologies are based on somehow artificial intelligence. And of course, besides the artificial intelligence, we all familiar with the term Internet of Things. Now we should be more familiar with the Internet of Medical Things. This is around 17% of the overall revenue of healthcare innovation from Profile Aspect. And of course, it can cover many, many things. So right now, what we are facing with and what we are realizing, not just in EIT Health, but altogether in the industry, that automatization, and this is also, of course, connecting to artificial intelligence somehow, that automatization is one of the key fields what innovators should actually deliver to the healthcare system, because limitations in resources are touchable, were touchable in the past 15 years actually, but slowly but surely we reached a point, and COVID just make it worse. Then it realized that doctors, nurses, resources altogether should decide they are treating a patient with COVID or treating with another chronic disease. And that's not right. And of course, healthcare system are suffering from that. If you listen to the news or follow the news, unfortunately, there is a new Bergamo ahead of us, which is in Romania. So all the countries can really easily get into this trap. And everybody knows that. So actually, automatization would be one of the key fields, and not just, it's not something which is with us in the future, but right now we need at the moment today new solutions, which is making the whole patient journey easier, more manageable, and of course more trackable. And if we are just talking about the trackability, this is telemedicine. So we should also talk about the two other big fields, which is telemedicine, and it's somehow connected also to big data and analytics. Because for remote part, and I just mentioned to you Romania, and Romania is a typical good example. And I just mentioned the kind of negative context of Romania, unfortunately, because of COVID-19 right now. But let me give you a really positive aspect of Romania, besides many others, that Romania is one of the most booming countries from telemedicine point of view. There are many, many solutions coming from Romania, and the users are really proactive from the utilization point of view. So that's one thing, that nice solutions are coming from market, but the other is that the local market is using or not. And we're not talking about hundreds of users, but we are talking about 10,000, sometimes 100,000 of users. And that's happening in Romania because of the so many remote regions of Romania, and the acceptance of technology within the population, especially younger generations are starting to use telemedicine solutions. So they are booking appointment with a doctor, they are having remote consultations, they're having a different type of, let's say, of course, mostly diagnostic related services coming from telemedicine solutions. Big data analytics, it's really, I know that you are familiar with the field. So everything which is leading us to the data-driven solution would be much more than helpful and welcome on the European market. Of course, the others you can see, guys, because of the time limitation, I wouldn't like to go one by one in details, but of course, if you're interested in, we can talk about it in the end of my presentation. But as you can see on the right side, we have the immersive technology, the mobile health, the 3D printing, something which is really, really booming. So I believe 3D printing is, again, it's a little bit similar to artificial intelligence, but 3D printing has a lot more or less more luckier situations so far than artificial intelligence. But personally, I'm expecting a bigger boom in 3D printing in 2022. So if I'm right, then at the end of 2022, so 3D printing will be on the left side of this chart. Blockchain, again, it's quite similar how we are using blockchain, and because of the regulation, it didn't grow as it was expected, but already 6%, so it's quite big. Genomics and cloud computing. So those are the other two fields which are definitely defining the future of healthcare. Funding landscape. So there are so many funds you can go for. The good news is that there are just titles and program names and everything just dropped here, but just to demonstrate how big the landscape is. So there are several European funds like EIT, like EIC, the European Innovation Council. You can also, find the European Investment Bank offering different type of opportunities. Besides it, of course, these are the bigger European initiatives. But just EIT Health has its own venture capital, which is the VCOE, so Venture Center of Excellence. We do have different type of connected institutes who are providing financial support for young innovators, and of course more major projects as well. So overall, my message here again, that if you want to find money, local or European funds, public money in general, you can find it. It's for sure. Of course, you need to apply for different programs. You need to work out different type of sheets, but that's it, guys. So I don't feel like that it's a huge barrier. Of course, you need to compete with others. So, in our programs, usually hundreds of startups are applying, and we are usually selecting like 15, 20 per each program. So there is a competition, definitely. But it's also an art how to create a good application, and we are also providing support for that. So if you are an early stage company, you want to apply to our programs, we are more than happy to prepare you for the application. And of course, we cannot guarantee anything. So we cannot guarantee that you will win. We can guarantee that if you are learning the lesson, you will have a better chance to win. So that's what we can do. And of course, if you're in the program, we can offer a lot more. Just a quick overview. This is still 2018, yes, because for 2019 and 2020, for somehow EU didn't publish the results so far. Of course, these were twisted years, so I believe that it's really, really hard to see how the trends will look like. But what I would like to show you at how the VC investments look like in the previous years. The overall message here, you can easily see it. But first of all, the total VC funds, the amount of money they poured into the market significantly increased during the years. Of course, there were some years where it was stagnating, like 2012, 13, 14, it was quite the same. But then from 2015, it's increased a lot. And you can see also the kind of proportioning, so between later stage ventures, startups, and seed investments. But altogether, of course, from seed perspective, and also for later stage venture from 2017 to 2018, it was a little bit of drop. But if you are comparing with the previous years, you can also see the significant increase. Okay, so this is just the sectoral split between the venture investments. Sorry, I need another drop of coffee. You can easily see them. So biotech and healthcare were remaining a significant part of the investment structure. Of course, ICTs, I'm not hiding secrets, ICT is booming a lot as well. It was always a preferred field of investment, but it became more and more with the years. But as you can see, other sectors were a little bit narrowed. They were a little bit dropped, like business products and services, for instance, or real estate. But biotech and healthcare were pretty much stagnating. And of course, there were some years where a little bit decreased or increased, but altogether, it remained a preferred field of investment. Okay, so public funding. So just a few examples. As you can see, the names, European Investment Fund, Horizon, now it's Horizon Europe from 2021. We have the InvestEU, the European Investment Bank. We have EIT, ESIF. So many institutes who are providing a non-returnable support financial support for innovators. Most of them, like us as well, are highlighting one field or one, let's say, life stage of an innovator or a startup. This is the value of that. So we are providing, as I mentioned at the beginning, we are providing support for each and every type of maturity levels. I will tell you later on what I think of. But we are highlighting the field. So where we are, I'm not saying mostly concentrating, but where we have an extra focus on is startups on the early stage in order to make them survive the valley of death. So we definitely want to help you to handle your cash flow and avoid that your cash flow will kill you. So that's pretty much what we are doing from the financial perspective. But I will later tell you that besides, of course, the money, we are able to provide network, education, and different type of let's say sales support. Let's go this way. Okay, and if I just drop these points, then let's hit in the middle. So, just really quickly what we're doing. So EIT is standing on 3 different pillars, which are the campus, the accelerator, and the innovation projects. Campus is education. So we are supporting more than 70 different education programs all over Europe. Some of them are just, a simple boot camp or a training, but some of them are master education, which is actually completing some of the academic education forms. In our network, the biggest healthcare universities are there. Accelerator, of course, startups. So again, I don't want to waste your time. I will talk later on what are our key programs we can offer to you. But this is all about startups. Maybe one thing to highlight here, besides that we are organizing one-year programs for startups coming from different maturity levels, we are more and more pushing the direction to create consortiums where startups can work with big multinational companies like GE Healthcare, Siemens, Roche, Novartis. So all of them are part of our network. And in the consortium, they can work with multinational companies and academic partners. And of course, these consortiums are formed for 3 to 5 years and receiving hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of euros for different projects. And we are not just pushing. Pushing. Of course, it's a friendly push. So we are not forcing anybody to work with startups. It should be a common intention coming from the startups and other parts of the consortiums. But we a little bit made a reverse engineering on creating the consortiums, because usually, of course, the leaders of consortiums are bigger companies, multinational companies. But we created a program. It's called Startup Amplifier, where we made a reverse engineering. Therefore, the startups will be the lead, and startups are looking for partners in our network or outside of our network. It's also allowed to bring the other multinational companies or academic partners to work with. An innovation project. So these are the big ones. So I just mentioned to you already. So 3 to 5 years programs, hundreds of thousands, millions of euros, and these are the projects who are winning actually support from us, which are heading to the market right away. So again, some of our partners like GE Healthcare, Roche. So all these companies are in our network, and they're working special projects under our support. And if everything is going fine, these projects will be landed on the market and will be available for patients in a few years. I see in the meantime that we have 2 questions or 2 notes on the chat. If it's okay for all of you, I would answer for it at the beginning of the presentation. Okay, so our presence, guys, I don't want to waste too much time on it. Everywhere. So, it's the overall message is all of Europe. EU, of course, but besides EU, I need to tell you that we also have cross-kick programs, which are connecting to the rest of Europe, to the the EU field. We do have many relations with Montenegro, Macedonia, Albania. Also now we are heading to Serbia. So all these countries will work with us and already working with us in several projects. But of course, in the EU, we have active presence. As you can see in the bigger countries like Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, Scandinavia, of course, with all the Scandinavian countries, Spain has its own center, so has its own HQ. But us, so Central Eastern and Southern Europe, we do have, because we are, we are consist of smaller countries. So actually, our HQ is in Budapest, Hungary, and we are covering 13 countries, 14 regions within Central Eastern and Southern Europe. And in order to increase our presence in the Central Eastern region, we created the RISC program and we created the RISC hubs. So besides our official partners, we have different type of also official partners. They are called RISC hubs who are working with us. These are accelerators and academic partners who are entitled to represent EIT Health within their countries. And besides Europe, so it's important to mention here that we have an outreach office in the Silicon Valley in the US. We also have one in Tel Aviv, Israel, and we have catalyzer partners in China, Japan, Canada, US, South Korea, and China. So these countries, you will see that we have also soft landing programs, meaning that if you are grown Europe and overgrown Europe and you would like to go to the overseas market, then we can also help you by these partners, so we can reach all these countries by our partners. Yeah, just a quick overview. So in the recent years, we supported 758 startups, and we attracted. So these are not our money. This is the money we attracted from external sources for startups. This is 248 million euros in the past years. Okay, and just in general, what can we do for you? So one is the access to knowledge, so education actually. We are organize different trainings and boot camps based on your maturity level and needs. Usually in the boot camps, of course, we are lecturing business skills. So we are giving you business skills improvement because again, there are, of course, different other opportunities where you can improve your technical or healthcare related knowledge. But in boot camps, our focus is to increase the business capacity and competence within your team, because again, our approach is that you're healthcare professionals, you are good what you're doing, but you need to learn how to make money from it. So that's the competence and skill set we would like to deliver to you. Access to stakeholders and markets. So I would like to link these 2 points together because this is all about our network. So we have more than 150 official partners, meaning that they are paying a participation or membership fee to us, but in return, they can go for different million euros of tenders. They have reach to our network. They can work with all of our partners, so they have many other services they are receiving. But the good news is that these are the biggest healthcare corporations and academic partners all over Europe. They are invited, so this is the formal, let's say, network. And besides, we have the informal network of investors, informal network of industrial players. And besides them, there is the formal network of investors. EIT Health has its own investor network. It's called the Investor Network. And other than that, there is the VCOE I mentioned you before. This is the Venture Center of Excellence, where you can also find a group of investors, individual investors, but altogether these formal partners, investors, and informal partners and investors are always invited to our networking events because on program-wise and EIT Health-wise as well, we are constantly organizing networking and partnering events. Of course, in the COVID era, that's more likely online, but we hope that in the next year we can get back to the on-site version because it's always a little bit more valuable. But the good news is that whenever we needed to step one day to another to the online field with our networking events, of course, we were pretty quick to search and find networking applications. So you should not expect that, it's like somebody's like me now talking to you, others are listening, but also we are using networking applications where you can find on a one-to-one basis, investors, industrial players. You can set up meetings and you can kind of sit down with them and talk about your possibilities. So that's really important in all of our networking events, and we have a lot during the year. And again, we try to passively, in these cases, passively link you to different type of future customers, future cooperatives and investors, but we have an active contribution as well. So whenever we see any type, and we see a lot, opportunities to take part in a consortium or making any type of teamwork with others, then we are actively linking you to potential partners or maybe potential customers as well. And access to finance, so let me just summarize here what type of money we can give you. So one is a smart funding. Smart funding is actually money you receive, you need to plan with it. So our only expectation towards you is that you are planning with the money and you are telling in advance that approximately, not precisely, especially for a year term, but approximately what you would like to do with the money. Because the only thing we are aware of and we would like to focus on in the future as well, that you are using the money not for your business as usual operation, but for improving your project and getting to step 5 to step 6. So that's pretty much what smart funding means. The only obligation here that you need to fill out a financial report at the end of the year. Other than that, you are creating your project plan at the beginning, you're following it. That's it. The other is prize, which is even more easier money. So prize is, so many of our programs are ending up with a pitching competition, and whoever is in the first 3 will receive a prize. Prize is not reportable money, so you are receiving it and you are spending it however you want it. Of course, there is a limitation because of, so we are funded by Horizon Europe program. Under this program, we have limitations that in smart fundings and prices, we are able to give you maximum 50,000 euros in a year. But of course, it can happen, which happens a lot, that you need more money. And if you need more money, first of all, we have our own investor network in VCOE, so we can find you an investor within our network. But if we are somehow not capable for that, then we have a really large network of informal investors, meaning that they are having a good relationship, they are looking for good startups, and we are looking for good investors. So it's a win-win situation for both sides. That means that whenever we have the promising startups in our portfolio, we are making a kind of introduction to them and, hey guys, this is a nice startups you were looking for. Let's make a discussion if you agree with that. And of course, every time there is an investor or more who would be interested in your project. So that's just pretty much the overall message, what we have and what is our approach from the program portfolio perspective. So we are thinking of a journey, meaning that we are not expecting that you would like to follow our journey during your whole life cycle. But whenever your life stage is indicating that you need some support, that in each and every level, we have a program where we can help you with. So actually, as you can see from the ideation to the scale out, or actually one of my colleagues' own copyright is a Soonicorn. So actually startups who will become unicorns soon, we can support you. So that's pretty much the message I would like to deliver here. And I just brought you 5 key programs in our portfolio. So let me just quickly go through these. Of course, if you're interested in any of these, or if you need something else, please feel free to contact me via LinkedIn at the last slide of my presentation. And of course, you will receive my presentation through Sophia. You can find also my email address, so please feel free to email me if you need any further information regarding these programs or any other thing. Okay, so first, actually the Jumpstarter. Of course, all these programs, so you will see deadlines at the right bottom of the slides. Of course, these application phases were already done, but the good news that all of these programs were coming back to, in 2022, approximately with the same deadline you can see on the right corner. So Jumpstarter first. This is the really for the ideation stage startups. So whoever is having an idea and at least one team member, then it's good to go. So there is nothing more needed. No incorporated company, no revenue, no prototype or MVP or whatever. So actually just an idea and one team member besides you. So that's pretty much what you need. Here, you are learning the basics of business. But through really practical boot camps. So I had the honor to also teach in these boot camps, also to be part as a listener. And I can tell you that the good news is that there is no room for bullshit. So there is no theoretical something which is spending the time on, but all the things you will learn during the boot camps are really practical, and you need to practice it on the spot. So it's not about just sitting and listening, but doing. So this is how we are approaching to all of these boot camps, because we believe that your time and our time is more precious than that, just to repeat the same theoretical things what you can have from other sources as well. So here you are receiving, so if we are living in a COVID-free, or at least a limited COVID era, you will receive 2,000 euros. So whenever you are in the program, you will receive 2,000 euros for travel and accommodation, because the boot camps are in different countries. So and you can select which country you would like to travel to and be part of the boot camp. And of course, you are receiving money for your spendings. But other than that, there is a 10,000 optional 10,000 prize, which is going to the winner of Jumpstarter. So after the education, so after the boot camp, you will receive also individual trainings and mentorship. And actually, after this phase, you are invited to participate in a pitching contest, where if you are winning, the competition, you will receive the 10,000 as a prize. So altogether, the maximum is 12,000, but it's again not about the money mainly. It's about the knowledge and how to jumpstart your idea to the market. And as an essential next step, you can come to Innostars Awards, because if you are done with Jumpstarter or just by your own, you have a prototype or an MVP and an incorporated company, then you are eligible for Innostars Awards. Innostars Awards is offering 25,000 euros for each and every participants of the program. This is smart funding, so I need to mention here, you need to plan with it, you need to spend it, and you need to report it, but still you don't need to give anything back, shares or equities. So it's 25,000 euros. And by the 25,000, you have 6,000 for mentoring. I need to mention here that we have our own mentoring and coaching network called Mentoring and Coaching Network, MCN, which consists of more than 600 individual mentors pre-selected during the years. So I'm now part of EIT Health for 3 years. At the time, we had around 200. So actually, we built up this system in the last 4 to 5 years, and each and every mentor has been interviewed during the years. So not everybody can get into this system, only the qualified ones. And whenever you are getting to one of our programs, you will have an access to MCM. You will receive the 6,000 euro, for instance, from Innostars Awards. You select the mentor or mentors you would like to work with. You are contracting with them, and you are paying from the money we are giving to you. So that's pretty much the process. But the good news is that you don't need to find your mentors by your own. You don't need to take a risk, because all of these mentors actually are pre-qualified. And we also have a chemistry session for free at the beginning, so you can actually meet, of course, mostly at the moment online with the mentors. You can check out if you can work with those mentors, and if both parties are saying, "Hey, yes, this can work," then you are contracting, you are making them useful, and then you're paying them. So that's pretty much the process of mentoring. But the rest of the money, so 19,000 euros, it's all about project development. So everything which is improving your project, all about, it can come. So actually, everything is more or less accepted. So what I'm thinking of is, for instance, you are not entitled to buy, I don't know, laptops, for instance, which is for your everyday use, but every devices, every type of consultation services, every other services, marketing costs can be justified here in the 19,000 euros. So you can use it for your own purposes, for your project. Besides the money, of course, you will take part boot camps. It's a 2 times 2 weeks boot camps right now online, of course. Previously, we held it in Portugal. So I believe that all of us a little bit feel sorry about it, that we cannot go to the wonderful places of Portugal or any other countries. But recently, we had it in Portugal. But it's all about, so the main topics of the boot camps are the advanced pitching techniques, the European regulation system. We are also having a healthcare marketing and sales module. We also have just recently this year, we started to introduce early stage health technology assessment, which is a really unique service. If you are searching for it, then only 3 or 4 institutes are doing in the world. And it's all about strategic pricing model. So how startups should create their own pricing model, which can be applicable for every other markets they would like to step in. So it's a methodology, and also it can help you to create your term sheets towards the investors. So these are the main topics of the boot camps. And at the end of the boot camps, there will be a professional recording of your pitch, 3 minutes pitch, which will be also used in the grand final if you are among the winners. Because whenever we are over money, mentoring, bootcamp, everything is done. You need to, or you are asked to create your business plan, which is a business plan light. So it's a 7 pages template you need to fill out. Of course, if you already have a business plan, then it's a copy and paste exercise, maybe a little bit customize it. But the 15, so originally we are selecting 15 semifinalists. Based on the business plans, we are selecting 10, the best 10, and they are invited to our grand final pitching contest, which actually for 2021 edition will happen during the next week. So 27th of October, we will have the grand final for Innostars Awards 2021 as part of BioEurope. I believe that most of you are familiar with BioEurope. Is the biggest biotech, health tech, and medtech fair in Europe. This year they are expecting more than 4,000 participants, and you know, if you check the recently, I didn't check actually the ticket prices, but last year it was almost 2,000 euros per person. So it means that only people who are representing companies or who are really into health innovation would visit the fair. Otherwise, you know, people from the street will not go there and pay 2,000 euros. So our grand final will be part of this event, which has a kind of dual benefit for the startups. First of all, they are receiving the 4 days ticket, so they can visit all the exhibition. They can, of course, organize one-to-ones with investors, with industrial players. And then those guys, I mean, the most precious investors, around every year we are able to invite outside of our network around 70 to 80 people who are absolutely new for us, just visitors of the exhibition, but based on their profile could be relevant for our startups, are invited to our grand final. And of course, grand final, typical pitching contest, pitching in front of the jury, juries asking questions, and then from the 10 we are selecting the best 3, and the best 3 is receiving further 25, 15, and 10,000 euros as prizes. So actually in Innostars Awards, the maximum money you can get is 50,000 euros. So yes, this program is, as I mentioned to you, now it's in the end phase, but we'll come back in 2022. So in the spring period or the beginning of the year, the application will be renewed. Then Startup Eats Pharma, just really quickly because we're running out of time. So it's a challenge-based program. This is a program where challenges are designed together with big pharma companies. So they are looking for different type of solutions coming for startups, and they are eager to work with startups. So whoever can resonate every year is a different set of challenges. but whoever is able to resonate one of the challenges can apply. If also the selection is together with the pharmaceutical companies. So if you're selecting your startups, then of course, besides the education, money, and all these things, the biggest thing here is that you can actively work together with that specific pharmaceutical companies. And it's a 3-year program. I mean, in the last 3 years, we had this program previously, it wasn't existing, but each and every year, we had at least one startups who had a contract at the end of the year and continued their work with the respective startup or the pharmaceutical company. So that's something which is organized by a German branch. And of course, again, it will come back in the next year. Just one more mentioning here, a kind of side program, but it's a separate program, but it's not listed here. It's called Startup Meets Healthcare Providers. So based on the success of Startup Meets Pharma, the German branch, together with us, because we are co-founders as Swiss region, that started a new program from this year, which is almost the same as Startup Meets Pharma, but here you can work together with healthcare providers coming from all over Europe. European Health Catapult, that's one of the flagship program of ours. Actually, we are here searching for scale-ups and scale-outs. So whoever is having at least a pretty solid European presence, at least in one country, and would like to start its expansion in Europe or outside of Europe. Besides that, companies who are actually getting into the final stage are receiving 50,000 euros. Education, mentorship, of course, customized for a scale-up and scale-out. So definitely not the same material, same education, and same knowledge we are delivering like in the previous programs I mentioned to you. But of course customized for scale-ups and scale-out needs. But the biggest benefit here is that the program is actually making a huge PR advertising balloon around the startups. So here we are bringing startups to the different online or on-site stages. We are, of course, in every program we are making, press releases, making PR articles. But in case of European Health Catapult, our entire HQ is actually advertising in different ways the startups who are participating in. Just in this picture, you are seeing it. On the left side, you can see Kurt Höller, our director of Accelerator. So actually, he's personally involved in the program and starting to help the startups in order to make a bigger awareness in Europe. And the last program I would like to talk to you about today is the Bridgehead program. It's also for scale-ups and scale-outs. This is about soft landing. So we have Bridgehead Europe and Bridgehead Global. You can recognize that Bridgehead Europe, of course, it's all about expansion within Europe. Global is outside of Europe. So if you are considering to expand your activity within Europe or outside of Europe, but you don't know which country you should go for, or at least you have an idea where you would like to try yourself, that we have partners you can travel to. Of course, hopefully next year it will be much more easier. You can spend 4 to 6 weeks in a different country, but it's not like, it's not like being a tourist there, but our partner is entitled to organize interviews with real market players, introducing you to the local business life, and also making you a full picture about the regulations, the legislation. So if you want to open a business there, what you need to be careful with. So that's pretty much the package you are receiving within Bridgehead. And again, it has a European and outside of Europe branch. So guys, as you can see, you can write to my email address, and pretty much this is what I would like to tell you today. Of course, I will check out the 2 questions I received through chat, but if you have any other things, just please let me know. If you don't have further questions for now, then you can find me on LinkedIn, and you can write me an email anytime, so please feel free. And Sophia, can I check the chat, or you would like to do?
Yeah, it was just me actually saying that please ask questions. So we haven't received any questions so far.
Okay.
But
maybe
I would have one as a matter of fact. So you mentioned, and obviously due to COVID, there's a rise in healthcare startups that are currently really booming, and the whole industry is really a hot topic. And how do you see currently? Is it easier to expand internationally, or is it not? Because this program is on, as you might know, is focused on helping companies to accelerate into new European markets. So how do you see that? Will this trend stay? How can it be maintained? And what are your opinions?
So I see that expanding in Europe, it's easier now. So even though you know, the natural barriers are still there, so because of the different legislation, the different reimbursement systems, but also investors who thought, I mean, had a local view and thought about investing into local players, now more and more opening for readiness startups. Because of the common need and the common pain we have, it's right now it's a little bit easier. Of course, it's important to make a distinguishment between private and public healthcare. So public healthcare is still really slow moving. It's really, you know, something, especially if you're an early stage company, you have an unstable cash flow. My advice, of course, maybe your profile is just requiring it, but if you have a decision to make that, try to make your point first with private healthcare, because if you need to wait for a contract for a year, if you need to wait for a first transfer after the contract half a year, then most probably your cash flow will not survive. So that's pretty much what is really important to know, that besides that it's a really difficult landscape to work with, it's really slow, and sometimes it's really painful also from financial perspective. But of course, wherever you are in, so if you survived, then public healthcare can be definitely a huge potential. But first, you need to be strengthen yourself in the private healthcare. That's pretty much my recommendation. But if you ask me that, you know, outside of Europe, how easy it is, it's really dependent which country we are talking about. In case of the US, it's a little bit more difficult how we see it. But in case of China, for instance, it's really easy. So China is actively hunting now the talented innovators and solutions coming from Europe. It was a trend before the COVID as well, but now it's been accelerated in a huge volume. Of course, you know, become a provider, for instance, in the Chinese market. Now that's a different thing. So you can find yourself, you can, you know, step into the Chinese market, but become successful in the Chinese market. It's a little bit more difficult than that. But expanding that direction is now quite easy. You know, if you are not that mature, that you overgrown Europe, my advice is to start to look your market around in Europe. So try to find because there are so many really promising ones. You know, one of the, from reimbursement point of view, I'm not saying it's easier, but a little bit, maybe, yeah, we could say it's a little bit easier compared to the average, but it's still pretty difficult and pretty complicated, but it's a really, you know, punctual and something you can plan with and expect. The result is the German healthcare system. So if you are looking, for instance, a good Western European market you want to enter, and for instance, the German market, it can be a good target. Of course, Scandinavian markets are still really valuable. You know, I'm not saying, so there is a kind of stereotype that Central and Eastern European market cannot be target markets because they are poorer than the Western Europe. I wouldn't say it. I mean, they are poorer objectively, of course, but I wouldn't say that they cannot be a target markets because they can be. But my advice in general, of course, profile by profile, startup by startup is a little bit different every time. That starts to build your operation in your local market. So don't shoot to the US at the first sight. Because you will not survive. It's a huge amount of effort, energy, money you would need just to discover the US market before you're doing anything. So actually, if you can establish yourself in your local market where you are familiar with the players, you're familiar with the language, the regulation, the legislation, everything you can be familiar with easily, then you can start to think about what's your next target in Europe. But first, conquer your local market.
Sorry, I was muted, but thank you so much for answering. I think you've given really elaborate information. So we have not received any other questions. So with that, I'd like to thank you again for. Oh no, there is one question, if that's fine with you. So the question reads: what about going from the US market to the European? How difficult is it?
What I just mentioned at the beginning, so you need to face with a heterogeneous landscape. So I believe it's really up to which country we are talking about. I just mentioned recently Germany. If you want to go to the German market, of course, you need to be familiar with the regulations and rules, but it's not that hard. But if you want to, handle Europe as its own, and which is, from the US perspective, sometimes it's a kind of mistake. So even though it's a whole continent and EU, it's considering itself, it's a solid power, and it is, but it's still really, really heterogeneous and fragmented. So whenever you want to come to the EU, you need to select your target market specifically within EU, and then you can, of course, open the scissors later on, but you need to discover country one by one. So that's not something you can save yourself from, unfortunately. So that's a challenge, but other than that, it's a prosperous market. So definitely, it's a potential for US companies as well.
Thank you. Yeah, so there are parallels. So you have to know your market, your customer, wherever you come from, essentially. Then.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Timothy, for the question, by the way. So then, thank you, Tamas, for your presentation. We're going to type my email address quickly into the chat. If anyone wishes to get your presentation, I can send it to them. So please write me an email and I'll be sure to attach the file. And to every attendee, thank you. And Tamas, have a nice weekend and see you all.
Same to you guys. Thank you for having me. Have a nice weekend. Have a good relax in advance. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.